Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to open the kiln. It's right now it's at 1378. Every time I open the kiln, it's going to drop 10 or 15 degrees. So I don't want to boogie too fast to get back to the kiln. I want to boogie fast to get this job done. But in between, I might wait a little bit because I'm going to be watching that temperature. So that's what's happening. If it looks like I'm slowing down, it's because I'm waiting for the temperature to get up around 1390 or so because it's going to drop. But it can go really fast. Depends on how much the temperature rises. So every 3 or 4 pieces, I'm going to stir this goo. The goo is a simple mixture of flour, water, sugar, and yeast. The sugar and yeast is there to enhance gluten, and I'll talk about that in a bit as I go. This doesn't take nearly the kind of protective gear that raku takes, and that's it. So I want a little bit more color on that one. A little more color. I can dunk it, but I have to be fast when I do it so it doesn't get too, yeah, first one can come out. First one's on that side. Yeah, there you go. So my handy dandy assistant is taken out. She can show it up there on the camera and you can see the hole. Oh, that's going to be beautiful. That is classic Ovara. You can see the color on that one. Classic color. Really dark. Grab that one a different way. Make sure I have to do it properly. That one's got water on the, no, it's not that one. It's got water on the inside. It's hot. Yeah, of course it's hot.
Does that go in there or no? Because it's still steaming.
You're gonna go in. Yeah, it's done.
Yeah, this is gonna be 197.
So we're giving them all numbers. So if you see something you really like, you can put that number into the chat. And then you and Brenda can hook up later on some how to get paid and all that good stuff, right? It took me a while to figure out how to get this done so I could get some pretty colors on them. You would think you could just dunk it in the mixture and away it would go, but
look at this. Wonderful Ovara.
so it's only about, now right now it's down to 1173, so it's getting a little on the cold side. And if I let it get too cold, it's going to start turning light brown. And I like it black, if I can get it the shiny black. So I'm going to give the kiln a little bit of time to recover. It's already up to 1343.
Wonderful little hanging flower pot with the blue. That's going to be 195.
Can you imagine doing this for like 300 pots at a time? That would be my normal firing, would be about 300 pieces. So this one's coming out. I'm going to show it up close here. You see that color developing. What you're seeing is a combination of smoke and steam. Some people say that this is smokeless. That can't be possible because what I'm doing is I'm carbonizing flour onto that pot. So all this dark material that you see is carbonized flour. So if there's no oxygen available, you know, you're kind of starting a fire without a fire if you think about it. So it's not exactly smokeless, but it's not as smoky as raku, that's for sure.
So this is going to be 193. Look at this cute little desk pot with the hole in the bottom. Look at that. Beautiful.
This one's got some really nice patterning on the bottom. This is a 10. If you have to say, do you like this one? I like that one.
Little hanging pot. Look at the pink. Oh, look at, see where, oh wow. Look at that Ovara.
Absolutely coolness. Here's a great example of what happens with that. Some of the colors don't accept the Obvara in the same way. So this blue is a standout because it won't take the Obvara at the same rate because it's more dense than the clay itself, and the clay body. It's just a function of its density. So knowing all that and putting it all together is kind of the art form of it. The reason I'm adjusting this in my tongs is because I don't want to have it full of Ovara goo.
Yeah, look at this one. Again, it's going to be a hanging flower pot. If you can envision that. Beautiful.
We're going to slow it down between the next couple of pieces because the did you notice me dropping that one in the goo? Let's see what happened there. Not bad.
So for those just tuning in, Jim, what's in the goo?
The goo. I don't know. Some days on a good day, if it was thicker, I'd be making a waffle out of it. But it's just flour and water with some sugar and yeast to help the gluten develop. It's all about gluten. So these light areas that are around the pot are created by gluten sticking to the pot. As I pull it out, the gluten goos itself to the pot, and that's the patterning. And the dark material is all the carbonized flour. So a lot of folks think they need to add something to make it bubble. They don't quite understand what bubbling is in the goo. It's basically a biological function of yeast. They're pooping. That's, I'm sorry, I know, baby talk, but hey, that's what they're happening. So a lot of people add things like beer thinking that they're adding the bubbles. No, the bubbles are carbon dioxide. It had nothing to do with, like there's carbon dioxide bubbles all over this because of the yeast. But it's really about gluten. You can do this process without any gluten, without any yeast and sugar. We've proven that a couple times. So this is another style of wind chime, actually. So I'm dipping this one multiple times because the color, it's a little on the hot side. And now, here we go. So I'm picking up a different type of color. Should I refire this one?
No, that's beautiful.
I think it's pretty too. Light brown color.
So it's interesting where I'm able to pick these up with my hand. That's how quickly they cool in the water bath. And you can see, but it's warmer down here. It's also pretty slimy, and that's from the gluten that's developed. That's sort of, yeah, kind of a slimy. That's what creates the resist and where the flour doesn't carbonize into the pot. So this one's going to be a wind chime, if you can imagine it being held up, and you can see sort of the little holes at the bottom here where the wind chime parts will be. This little blue one is going to be number one. What does that say, Jim? 187, and I'm taking a picture of each one of these. Of course, just a straight on shot, but this shows you number 187. Imagine wind chimes.
Yeah, something tells me that you're seeing a photo of the wind chime on the screen right about now. A completed wind chime. Now this is a little bit larger desk version of our flower pots. Make sure I've got a good grip. Don't get too close, Brent.
Oh, look at that. Whoa.
Yeah, I knew I was going for the water. I didn't want you stepping in front of me. I could have burned you. Of course, you weren't that close. But. So we're at 1388. So the temperature has been just perfect. I'm going to load it up here in a second. I'm going to load these into the kiln. And that will start the process for the next ones.
And we use propane, right? This is propane-fired gas kiln, and this kiln is our workhorse, basically, for all of the raku, carbon painting, and Ovara, obviously, products. You can find those, of course, at LickinFlames.com.
Yeah, we have to use propane because we live out in the forest. We are in the sticks, so to speak. And in the sticks, you have propane. We don't have access to natural gas. It's not an option. These are a couple of pieces that I'm firing from leftover from a workshop we did. It looks a little dangerous that I'm opening the kiln, right? And I'm only wearing gloves like that. I'm not wearing asbestos or anything. But I'm only touching this piece here. It doesn't get that hot.
They really can't see that.
Yeah, I'm only touching the handle.
Yeah. I wanted to show off this wind chime. Again, look at how the different, how Jim's been able to manipulate the flour burning into this pot. The colors are put on ahead of time, and then you've seen the rest of the process.
This is going to be a good example of some of that dipping multiple times. So again, just opening the kiln just for that little bit, we dropped almost 100 degrees in the kiln on the inside. We have a thermometer over here. It's measuring temperature about halfway up. So it's not really a typical ceramic process. I'm measuring the temperature here is relative to the temperature here. I watch that because that tells me, because I do it the same way each time, I don't really know the temperature of the pot. I know that temperature. So,
and what you're not seeing is there's a barometer on the kiln,
on the ground,
on the kiln floor ground.
It's got some nice spotting on it.
Yeah. Here's that pink larger flower pot. It's a desk pot with a hole in the bottom. Again, kind of goo. But where Jim didn't quite dip it, there's no goo, but you see all this spotting, and that's just beautiful Ovara. Yeah.
So here's pretty classic Ovara right here. And I'm holding it out in the air to get a little bit darker to fully carbonize the piece. So if I leave it in the air longer, not in the goo longer, but in the air, it turns this beautiful black color. And you can see again, there's where the blue has resisted the Ovara from carbonizing in those locations because it's denser. It just can't be absorbed. Pretty cool. That's a really cool process. Obvara is about 400 or 500 years old. We're really not sure. It doesn't predate written languages, but the languages never really spoke to it. They don't have stories of this, and because it was never a business enterprise, there's not a history of, say, a Wedgwood. Whereas when Wedgwood first started, we know exactly what they did because it was written down as a history. But this has no history, it's all verbal, which makes reverse engineering very difficult. But it's a 400 or 500-year-old technique. It's medieval, predates all of the glazing in Europe. So if I let it sit in the air like that, it will turn darker.
I'm realizing that, oh, there they can see your face.
What?
They can't see you.
No, which is good. That's how I keep my lenses on my cameras perfect. They don't crack.
So let me show you this up
That's an
close.
excellent piece.
Look at this beautiful, again, desktop flower pot, our medium version. And just absolutely gorgeous. And this is going to be number 182. If you're interested, just send me a interested in it to info@LickinFlames.com.
And one of the beauties of this is if I really don't like it, I will go back and refire it. I'll put it back in the kiln, burn off all that carbon. It takes a while, but I can do that, and then refire it. I've done enough of these, though I don't refire very often.
Well, here's a little tiny, the small version of that desktop flower pot, again with a little hole in the bottom. And look at that. Sort of matches that a larger one you had done earlier.
Good little tiny guy here too. It's a wind chime part, I think that one is. So again, that goo is just flour, water, sugar, and yeast. Everyone pretty much uses the same mixture, but we've tried other types of flour. We've tried enriched flours, which enriched means it has a higher protein content in the flour, in the wheat type. So different wheats have different amounts of protein in them, and that's what makes different amounts of gluten, stickier or not. So we tried various different flours. We've tried rye, we've tried rice even. Rice doesn't work because the stickiness of rice is not gluten. Now this is an experiment piece here. This is experimental. We're trying to see what would happen if I just put white on it. Will I get some kind of interesting resist pattern? We don't know. We do now. And the answer is no.
What kind of white did you try on it?
It's an underglaze.
We'll show that at the camera a little bit.
Like this one?
Yeah,
It did work.
that's beautiful.
Oh, it's still a pretty piece. The experiment didn't work. Well, yeah, I did.
It did work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool, actually. That's got some potential. We have another piece in here. I'm going to throw that back to cool it a little bit so I don't burn Brenda's fingers. We have another piece in here that we're going to try out also.
So this is a little wall pocket, so you just put a little nail into the wall, and then you can put air plants or whatever. Oh, look at that. It's just so cool to see how they come out and how you saw them sitting there ready to go into the kiln.
Yeah, just a few minutes ago, those pots were just sitting right here, and now, you know, they've been through the entire process. There's still a lot of experimentation that's left on the Obvara process. Most people are so enamored with it that they like, it's kind of fun to do, but they'll take a workshop, they'll do Obvara one time, and then they never experiment. And the people who do a lot of Obvara will do maybe 30 or 40 pieces. I do about 2,500 pieces a year. So I do a few more than most people.
So I wanted to just show you here, see those little dots? So that's what Jim is experimenting with. Could he create a pattern on pattern? I think you can. This little pot is going to be 178, number 178, if you're interested in this little pot.
Another wind chime part here. That's a pretty piece. You know, it's funny, I've been doing this so long, I still have favorites. We put it in the water not just to cool it, but it stops the process. If I just kept it in the air, it's just going to keep carbonizing. It will start to turn darker and darker. But for the most part, I like it to be brown. My personal favorite is black, but not everybody likes black. Okay, we have a couple student pieces that I'm going to do right now. Turn it over so I can see the top.
That's because you teach online classes, right? And
yes.
You can find those on our website too if you're interested. We've done some really wonderful one-on-one and then also group classes for teams, business teams, a little something to make working from home a little fun mixed in.
Yeah, it's fun to do, and I see a lot of people that have creativity in their bones, but they just don't have an outlet. So we try to create an outlet and then try to create an environment where they feel good about what they're able to do. So that particular piece is from a workshop series. We call it Intentional Creativity. And my daughter and I, Katie Atchison, who is a Itsy person,
Yeah.
from old school, but we have developed the workshop together as a series of 4 workshops. Pretty fun for us.
Yeah, Katie is certified in intentional creativity instruction, and she and Jim have teamed up on using ceramics in this creativity process. It's just pretty amazing. Again, on the website, Elemental Intentional Creativity with Ceramics. It's a series of 4 classes.
So I'm letting this one carbonize a little bit more so that I get less brown, more black. And this is to enhance the white that I put on as the experiment. And I think that's going to be, that's got some legs. In other words, we're going to play with it a little more. Another desktop flower pot with blue on it. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, look at this little desktop flower pot again.
Oops. That'll be maybe.
Yeah, really, really nice.
Now this glue is sort of funny because it's, you think about it, it's an organic material, and I can get it so hot, it's making porridge. So you can actually cook the goo. It's hilarious.
So this is a little wind chime topper, and you can still see, look at the goo. This is gluten. If you're wondering what gluten development looks like. But look at that, where he's done some resists on it. And if you're interested in this little wind chime, it is going to be $174.
You know, sometimes in the creative process, things break. So this student is not going to be happy their pot did not make it through. Too thin. That's okay. They made up for it with this piece. That is an absolute, when it gets put onto the glass globe it's put on top of, that's a 10.